Okay, guys. So we're back. English 250, Introduction to Literary Studies, and we are. This is the second part. This is directly connected to the last series of videos, which was on Clenth Brooks, and yes, the guy's name is Clenth somehow. So Clenth Brooks, I had a whole series of videos on Clenth Brooks, and he's a pretty important guy. Clenth Brooks's whole point was that you can't just pay attention. You can't substitute a summary or a paraphrase or a translation or anything for the poem. Now, it's fine to use those things on your way to understanding something, but too many people do this thing where they basically they books are made of words, and words are in society usually designed to convey information. So since books are made of words, and since words are usually designed to convey information, this gives people the wrong. Common sense would tell you, and common sense is wrong here, by the way. There's a famous physicist who said common sense is that thing that tells you the world must be flat. Because if it wasn't, everything would just fall off the bottom. So common sense is often wrong, and one of the areas where common sense is wrong is in this idea that words are designed to because words are designed to convey information, so that once you get the information, you don't really need the words anymore. You didn't care about the words; you were after the information. So once the words get the information into your brain, you can throw the individual words away. Right? Somebody sends you a message, and they tell you where to meet them, and then you don't think about the individual words they use. The point is, you got to be at this place at this time, and the specific wording doesn't really matter that much. Because literature is also made of words, people then make this mistake. They go, well, I guess literature must be about the information that it contains. But that's not right. Literature is actually about the words. And Clenth Brooks really encourages you to talk about the individual words, and to make sure you don't substitute a paraphrase or a summary or an adaptation or a translation for the actual words itself. It's surprising how many people do this. They just care about the events described, but they don't seem to care very much about the description, which is the words, the individual choices. The same thing goes for movies. People will talk all day long about, would Superman be able to beat up Thanos, but they don't tend to talk as much about the specifics, which is of movie making, which is like camera angles and musical motifs and screenplay structure. So Clenth Brooks, because to do that, you have to pay attention to the actual work of art. What everybody else is doing is they're taking the characters out of the work of art and treating them like they're individually existing things. So with that in mind, this Brooks's point, and I didn't have enough examples last time, and that's because today's the example. What I want to do in these videos is go over an example of the kind of thing Brooks is talking about. And so what I want to do is I'm going to go through Hamlet, obviously, which is my perennial example for all things. Hamlet is a 4-hour play. It's really long. And the thing about Hamlet is that most of the time it's cut down because it's really too long. 4 hours is crazy. By the way, this is a conversation we'll have in a later video, but Hamlet was never supposed to be 4 hours. Shakespeare basically wrote like a 2-hour version, then he wrote a 3-hour version, then he wrote a slightly different 3-hour version. And what people have done is they basically combined the versions together. This started in about the 19th century, and so Hamlet became 4 hours. Shakespeare didn't mean for Hamlet to be 4 hours, but modern editors of Shakespeare's books have combined 3 different manuscripts to create some Frankenstein book, which is pieced together from several different places. And so Hamlet should be shorter. Anyway, people know this, and what they do is they either cut it down. If you don't cut it down, it's still 4 hours, and you're going to miss some stuff. The thing that gets missed and or cut in Hamlet most often is this character named Fortinbras. Fortinbras is remember, this is the guy who's threatening Hamlet. He's threatening the kingdom at the beginning of the play, and then he stops through on his way to Poland in the middle of the play, and then he exits. He stops through again at the end, and he finds that everybody's dead, and he's like, well, I guess if you guys are dead, I'm going to take over. Which is, and what's interesting about the story is that it's 4-hour play. It's often cut out. Fortinbras is an easy thing to cut out because then everything else stays the same except for Fortinbras. It's really not that big a change since you came to see Hamlet, the character. But if you miss the Fortinbras stuff, you're really missing a lot. And I think Clenth Brooks' point that you got to pay attention to the individual words and details is really illustrated well by looking at what Fortinbras is doing in the play. So with that in mind, what I want to do is look at that, which means we're going to be spending this series of videos on a section of Hamlet that nobody but me gives a shit about. But I really care about the Fortinbras plot a lot. I think if you pay attention to exactly how it goes, you learn a little. It's really fascinating. So let's start on page 2. You remember the very beginning of the play when the guards are outside and they see the ghost. Why do they see the ghost? Because they're guarding the castle. Well, why are they guarding the castle? But they actually don't even know, because they're not normal guards. They're like extra guards. The whole country is getting ready for war. They're building cannons and they're building military machines, but nobody really knows why. Because there's not like a news organization. You can't turn on the TV and find out. And so there's not really a clear reason. And so the guards have Horatio come to see the ghost. And when he gets there, they're like, "Listen, while we're waiting, can you please tell us what the hell? Why are we getting ready for war? What is happening right now?" And they ask him this in pretty clear terms. I'm gonna set my thing up here. They ask him in pretty clear terms, and they say, they ask him, "Sit, good now, sit down, and tell me, he that knows, why this same strict and most observant watch so nightly toils the subject of the land, and why such daily cast of brazen cannon and foreign mark for implements of war? Why such impressive shipwrights, whose sore task does not divide the Sunday from the week?" Right? They're literally building boats so quickly that they don't divide the Sunday from the week. They don't have weekends. They just work in 24/7 on these things. He says, what might be toward, meaning what's coming, what might be toward, what might be toward that this sweaty haste doth make the night joint labor with the day? Who is it that can inform me? And Horatio says, "I can." And he tells him the story. And this is one of these bits that it's a little complicated. And so most audiences, when they hear it, don't really follow it too well. And a lot of readers don't follow it too well. And a lot of movies just cut it out because they know the audience isn't going to get it anyway. But what I want to do is go through it. So Horatio gives an explanation. "That can I, at least the whisper goes so. This is a rumor. Our last king," that's Hamlet's dad, "our last king, whose image even but now appeared to us," right? That's the ghost. "Our last king, whose image even but now appeared to us, was, as you know, by Fortinbras of Norway, thereto pricked on by a most emulate pride, dared to the combat." So what's interesting here is that in the old days, a long time ago, like 30 years ago, Hamlet's dad was king of the country, and Fortinbras's dad was king of the country next door. So Hamlet's dad was king of Denmark, and Fortinbras's dad was king of Norway, and they went to war against each other like when Hamlet was born, like a long time ago. So Horatio's telling about the history of these guys. They were dared to the combat, and what were they fighting over? They were fighting over land, in which our valiant Hamlet, for so this side, and remember, Hamlet's dad has the same name as Hamlet, so as soon as when you see Hamlet, that's the dad. That's not our main character. In which our valiant Hamlet, for so this side of our known world esteemed him, did slay this Fortinbras, right? So Hamlet's dad killed Fortinbras's dad, who by a sealed compact, well ratified by law and heraldry, did forfeit with his life all those his lands which he stood seized of to the conqueror. So Hamlet's dad killed Fortinbras's dad. Fortinbras's dad is named Fortinbras Senior, and Hamlet's dad is named Hamlet Senior. So the point of this is that Hamlet's dad killed Fortinbras's dad in the distant past of the play, and he lost land. And this is all a bunch of legal language about the land that they basically said whoever wins the fight gets the land. Against the which a moiety competent was gauged by our king, which had returned to the inheritance of Fortinbras as he been vanquisher, as by the same comarch and carriage of the article designed his spell to Hamlet. Again, not really worth going over, but it's technical legal language. But you can see from how confusing it is, how difficult it is for an audience who just sat down to watch Hamlet to follow this. It's very difficult. But the point is, it's a lot of legal agreements that meant that when King Hamlet Senior killed Fortinbras Senior, Hamlet Senior got the land. So now, right, and whoever wins get the land. So now we have the problem. All right, now, sir. So here's the present now. Here's what's going on right now. Young Fortinbras, that's Fortinbras Jr., of unimproved metal, hot and full, he's never been in battle, hath in the skirts of Norway here and there sharked up a list of lawless resolutes for food and diet, some enterprise that hath a stomach in it. He's basically hired a mercenary army. Fortinbras Jr. is not using the official army. He's sharked up a list of lawless resolutes for an enterprise that has some stomach in it. Meaning, a shark will eat these little tiny fish. Fortinbras has grabbed all these little tiny soldiers, not official army, but unofficial mercenary soldiers, for an enterprise that has some stomach in it. Meaning, he's just basically got a bunch of raggedy soldiers, and he's like, if you join my army, I'll feed you. And he wants to attack Denmark. All right, I'm going to pick this up in the next video.